Men need relationships. They need it more than women. There's this cartoon of a woman in her 30s who didn't find romantic love and is now living with cats. The reality is she's fine. Yeah. When women don't have a relationship, they pour that energy into their friends and their work. When a man doesn't have a relationship, he pours it into conspiracy theory, porn, and misogyny. Wow. Men need relationships much more than women. So this is how we get men more economically viable. Better tax policies, more vocational programming, and also, I think the public policy that would benefit men the most is universal child care. Because we need the greatest level of self-harm, the zone of quote-unquote suicide for a man, is the year after he's divorced. And the greatest cause of divorce is not a lack of values, it's not infidelity, it's economic strain. We need to put more money in the hands of younger people. And my generation, which has registered a disproportionate amount of wealth, needs to pay it back. We have a debt, but we cannot hold young men accountable for my privilege. It's just not fair.
Hey ladies, welcome back. This is Nava. Come on in and hit that subscribe button and let's talk about Scott Galloway going onto The View to promote his book. And y'all, this man is red pill. I don't care what none of y'all say. Him and Jordan Peterson are with red pill because it seems like, well, it doesn't seem like it is Scott Galloway's solution to men's problems. The lonely epidemic, they're being suicidal. They are just addicted to porn and video games and not doing well in school and just in the world as a whole. His solution is for women to sacrifice themselves and give themselves to men, and so they'll have somebody to do all of these things for them so they can have sex and so they can have meaningful relationships with women. That is his solution. To the root, at the root, he knows there's an issue with the men, but his solution is, oh, the women need to get with these men and fix them and help them be okay. That's dangerous for women, y'all. His whole message, it may sound good. He may have some good points, a lot of good points, he and Jordan Peterson, because they are somewhat semi-educated, but they are not getting to the root of the cause. The root is patriarchy. The root is capitalism, classism, racism. All of these things cause men to have these issues, and it causes men to not like women, but to need women. This is nothing new. We have heard men say a lot that they need women. I need a woman. I need a girl. I need a girl to ride. I need a girl to make my wife. I need a girl to, y'all know the song. They are in all of their songs. They need a girl. They need a girl. They have a girl. They need women. But women are saying, no, we don't need you. We want you, but we don't need you. But the problem is they want us to need them, which puts us in a very dangerous situation when we need them, because we've seen what happens. I show videos of what happens when you need a man. But in the same breath, them needing a woman is dangerous. This very dangerous. Us needing them is dangerous for us, and them needing us is also dangerous for us. So they need to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet, and the only way to do that is if men start speaking up against the patriarchy and stop treating feminism like it's some bad thing, when feminism is just women kicking into survival mode and trying to live out here in a world where men are taking us out. That's what needs to happen. So I'll be back later, and I'm going to go ahead and show you ladies these videos, and I'll talk to you later.
This man is back on his bullshit again. Oh, poor men, they need a relationship, and if women don't marry them and date them, they'll murder you. If this man doesn't shut up, Scott. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not an expert. You're an economist. Shut up. I have been talking about this man for 2 years. And what fascinates me is that he is the expert somehow. Not I don't know, Laura Bates. She might know a lot about men, I don't know, maybe, Bell Hooks knew a lot about men, cared about men, wrote a lot of books about men. I don't know, you can learn about women, class, race. You can learn a lot about women to understand men. The problem isn't we need to, what did he say? He said we need to basically invest more in men. Are you forking kidding me? Are you kidding me? Oh, they need more help. Are you kidding me? They need to grow up. Grow up! Stop making us solve y'all's problems. You gotta let go of your need for power and control and grow up. Do shit for yourself. I swear to God, nobody cares about women's mental health, but everybody cares about men's mental health. And if women don't care about men's mental health, they're gonna kill ya. So marry them. You marry him, Scott. You marry him. I dare ya. You wouldn't marry your sons. You probably wouldn't marry yourself. And you're out here telling all of us that men need relationships. Yeah, we know. That's the fucking problem. God, I hate this man so much. And the thing is, every once in a while, he'll say something makes sense, just like Jordan Peterson used to do. Every once in a while, he'd be like, blah, blah, blah. And people be like, yeah. And then he'd say a bunch of crazy stuff, really anti-trans, anti-woman, and Scott Galloway has said a lot of sexist, racist stuff. Oh, I did like an hour-long breakdown of the man. I will try to remember to link that video here. But he's out here saying that there's 3 pillars that make a man. Preventer, protector, and procreator. He was like, let me think of something. P. What's the third one? They need to have more kids that they don't want a parent. Fuck off! We don't want your kids. We're embarrassed to date you. We're embarrassed to marry you. We're embarrassed to procreate with you because y'all don't do anything because of your entitlement and your selfishness. That is the problem. That's the fucking problem. Your entitlement and your selfishness, and you will not question masculinity. And he's all like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with masculinity. Provider of what? Debt, trauma, autoimmune diseases." You don't provide anything but extra labor, unpaid labor, trauma, and all, you're vampires. You don't. And he's all like, they should provide more. Sure. How do they do that? They got to stop taking. Why do they take so much? Because of their audacity, their entitlement. God, they think they are kings. They inherit it's the same thing with whiteness. So, I mean, look, if I can unpack all the power and entitlement and all that crap that I was taught, all right, I didn't choose to learn this, but I was taught this in every possible way growing up through the media, through just all these different ways. And it takes work to undo this, to unfork your brain and unfork my brain for patriarchy, because I too bought into this stuff because every movie, book, TV series, like, when Harry met Sally, yeah, get with the dude who hates you, who's not anywhere your league, and then you gotta beg him to want you. What? Right? Every freaking movie taught me to, do a Little Mermaid and give up my entire life, family, and everything to go marry a dude that I thought was hot when he was dead, or when I thought was dead, and win him over by not talking, or Beauty and the Beast. I'm gonna fix a man who has me as a sex slave because my daddy sucked, and let him take me. like there are every single thing we've been sold is like a man's gonna save us. Right. We're the ones who say we provide, we protect, and we procreate. Y'all aren't doing any of that stuff, and we're over it. It is an honor and a privilege to be with a woman. And yet he's all like, mentions if you don't want them getting radicalized, watching porn, and all this stuff, like men need relationships. No, they don't need them. They want them because they don't want to do any of this work themselves. They don't want to go to therapy. They don't want to do all the work of friendships. I've been talking about this. I'm so sick of it. And for anyone new here, I wrote that article, Men Have No Friends and Women Bear the Burden. How basically, laid out all the things that men can do to build community and have friendships and not put all that on their wife. And because that's why when women leave men, when women divorce men, these men are devastated for about a hot minute until they find another wife to replace her with. Done. New one. If she dies because, I don't know, all the stress of living with this man in extra labor, boom, he's got a new woman at the funeral already. They waste no time, or they just die of laziness because they don't want to take care of themselves and they die of a broken heart. God, men, obviously not all men, okay? I got a lot of guy friends. I have a lot of men in my life that are wonderful, but you know how long and hard, you know how long it took me to find decent men? You know how many men have come in and out of my life because I learned right away or later, like, oh, you suck, right? Because you don't want to do anything. You expect women to do everything for you. And now they don't even want to work. And he's like, we need tax. You know, he also said, what is it? It was like, I think what would solve this is paternal leave. I love that idea, Scott. That is such a great idea. I would love for men to actually have time off to parent their kids. Do you know what most of those men do? I'm not against the policy. I'm all for the policy because some men actually want to parent. Do you know what most men do with paternity leave? Nothing. Ask women over in Europe who have maternity and paternity leave. So many of these men, what do? They go skiing. You know, like the answer that policy is important, but if you don't change the mindset of entitlement to free labor from women, entitlement to their bodies, feeling ownership of them, needing to control them, if you do not deal with that and your own hatred of yourself and hatred of the women taking care of you, because these men resent women. The more we do for them, the more they resent you because they know they should be doing it for themselves. Deep down, they know. They hate being dependent on you. They expect you to do everything. They bully you into doing everything. And they hate you for doing what they expect you to do. Right? If you don't change that mindset, which you can learn about if you literally read any of these books, you're God. So that, okay, provider of what? Protector of what? The most dangerous men in our house is our husband, brother, dad, grandpa, some dude. And in the Americas, 58% of all of the harm, like the violence, 58% is a man in the home. Even his kids. The orange is us. The blue is guys. I'm not even going to go over figures. Go Google it, Scott. But when I see this man, I do not see them interviewing experts. Hold on. Where can you see it? Experts. Like Laura Bates. Sorry, you can't see it. Greens. I don't see her. This guy, does a tour of, look at this. The View had him 2 days ago. Today, 2 days ago, 10 hours ago, The Daily Show. I expect better than you, Daily Show. CNN 2 days ago. Like this man is everywhere. Man, loneliness crisis. Shut up. Make them lonelier. Don't procreate with them. Like, they're not our providers of anything but pretty terrible things, with exception. They're not protectors of anything. They are literally the number one threat. And procreators? No! Y'all have been trapping us into marriages. You literally want us to have kids so that men can control it. Our grandmas, their great grandmas, and no, they were trapped with kids. And Scott's out here being like, no, they need to procreate. Men need to procreate. We don't want to! We're not going to. A lot of us aren't. Fork off, Scott, and shut the fuck
Got this picture behind me of Scott Galloway and his appearance on The View, and I'm gonna say this might get me some hate, but I think people are misrepresenting this clip. The clip that plays is him talking about how women don't need relationships the way that men do, right? That we find ways to fulfill ourselves if we don't have a partner in our lives, if we are a cis het straight couple, right? That we find a way to to fix that. And in the comments, that's kind of where the clip ends. But the comments are like, it's not our responsibility as women to fix men. And I don't think Scott Galloway is saying that, but I do think this is a conversation we need to have. I've heard him talk about his book a few other places. And from what I can gather, Scott Galloway is kind of saying that the patriarchy is failing people, because he specifically says, I think in this interview, that it is not the fault of women. It is not the fault of gay people. It is not the fault of any people of color that men feel the way they do, even though that is kind of what men want to blame right now, right? It's feminism, it's wokeness, that's why I'm lonely. He's saying it's none of those things. He's saying that the men of his generation have failed this generation of men. That when men lose mentors, when men lose valuable relationships in their lives, they find it in other ways. And he's not saying, women, you need to step up and you need to fix it. He's saying, men, we need to step up and we need to fix it. I think he is trying to illustrate how when you try to say that patriarchy is the way to go, that really like it fails everybody, that we have failed everybody at this point. And when he brings up things like universal childcare, I don't think he's saying that it's important now because it's important to men. I think he's trying to say it's always been important. And you want to know why? Even if you're a man and you think it doesn't matter, it does matter. It's going to make your life better too. It kind of reminds me of Ruth Bader Ginsburg in the 70s when she represented that widower who for the longest time it was that only widows received death benefits. But there was a widower who needed death benefits. His wife had passed. He needed the death benefits. So she represented him. And all of a sudden it became clear why men should also receive those things too. That I think Scott Galloway is trying to have a conversation about how do we illustrate what the real issues are and why young men feel this way. And it isn't because somebody else is your enemy. It's because you've been failed and you've been failed by the system. So I would encourage you to give, you don't have to, but to give what he's saying a chance. Hear it all the way out, because I think he brings up very, very good points that, you know, I don't agree with Scott Galloway on everything by far, but he's bringing up great points in that societally we have failed. We have failed this generation somehow with our policies. And it's not just men that have been failed. Obviously, it is women as well. And we have our guards up when we start talking about stuff like this. But to completely dismiss it and say men just need to figure it out, they do, but they need another generation of men to step up. I don't know if I'm being eloquent in this. I'm just saying that I think that this clip is being a bit misrepresented, and that maybe there's a conversation that does need to be had.
During the conversation, Scott G is like, we should do universal childcare support. Like, that is so important. That's going to help couples and people get married more. And it's not about the kids. Like, I am very much pro universal childcare support, but Scott G wants it because he's saying we need to get women to be shock absorbing wives again. We can't get men to participate in their households or be good partners or parent their own children. But maybe if we got them some daycare, then maybe women will come back to the table and, you know, pick up the slack and do something with these men.
You know, when I first heard him say that about universal childcare, I was like, that would be good for women. Why the hell would a misogynist care about that? That's why. But honestly, Coco is right. It is a bullshit attempt to try to get women back to the negotiating table, to try to get us back interested in marriage again, because they're seeing the trend. They're seeing the transformation. They're seeing that women are waking up to the fact that all of this is bullshit. That marriage is essentially a labor contract, and a very unfair labor contract at that, because it benefits men rather than women. In the balance, the benefits of marriage go towards men. But Scott Galloway thinks that if we have universal child care, women will want to get married and have children again. I love it how it was never suggested by people like him to be in favor of universal child care because it would make women's lives easier. No, it's when we're stepping back from marriage, they're like, okay, well, if we have to suggest this, maybe we can give them this and they'll come back. First of all, we won't. Marriage and childbirth rates are never going to return to where they were in the 50s and 60s. Not a chance. But what we can do as a society is ensure that the experience of motherhood for women is much safer, better, and happier than it is. But we're not really interested as a society in doing things just to make women's lives easier or happier. Now, suffering for these people is part of the bargain. They want women to suffer. That's why they make mothering in the United States as difficult as possible. But if you've watched the whole entire interview that Scott Galloway did on The View, you'll notice something. That right after he says universal childcare will be the biggest policy benefit for men, he immediately pivots to men getting divorced because of finances. So somehow he's linking universal childcare to financial trouble in marriage. I guess he's thinking that since childcare is prohibitively expensive now, that maybe that'll ease some of the financial burden and fewer people will get divorced. He never did draw a straight line between how childcare would help men. But whatever.
So here's where I think his theory falls short. He stresses that men, particularly younger men, are falling behind in schooling, in forming relationships, and stable employment. And he links this to a societal shift in the relationships that men experience. For example, 1 in 3 men under the age of 30 has a girlfriend, while 2 in 3 women have relationships. But Galloway doesn't emphasize enough that white men in positions of power still dominate many sectors, in business, in leadership, in politics. So while we talk about men falling behind, we have to ask ourselves, which men, and are we attributing the issue in the right way? He also implies that men depend on women, or the nurturing roles women have historically filled, to provide emotional connection and support during their achieving years, and without those supports, men struggle. To me, that places responsibility on women for men's success. My counter theory is that women and minorities have historically faced systemic barriers, so they learned early on, you've got to hustle, forge networks, build relationships, work harder. They can't assume someone else will provide support. On the other hand, many men, especially white men, are socialized to expect that others will provide the nurturing and emotional labor while they focus on achievement, and that their achievement will be prioritized over women and minorities. And that expectation is out of sync with the world today. In short, men don't need women to care for them, to do the emotional and relational work so they can rise and achieve. What men need is to learn to build those relational and emotional skills for themselves and to take responsibility for themselves, for their communities, rather than rely on someone else doing it for them. They also need to be taught to work hard and to look inward for the strength to accomplish their goals, rather than looking outward in resentment when someone outperforms them. So, to wrap up, I believe Galloway is doing a good job of ringing the alarm, but I think the diagnosis misses a layer or two. The assumption that men's success comes from women doing the emotional and relational work for them, and the assumption of entitlement, the lack of attention to which men are falling behind, and why, including how privilege still plays out. What I'm calling for is accountability from men. Men stepping up to be emotionally literate, relationally skilled, connected, and resilient. And society acknowledging this isn't just about girls got ahead so boys lost. If you're a guy watching this, you don't have to wait for someone else to care for you, to do the relational work, to push you. You can start doing that for yourself, for your circle, for your future. Thanks for listening. If this resonated, drop a comment and let's keep the conversation going.
Scott, by now I know you feel it. By now you've gotten enough reactions and duets from remarkable women telling you that they are not interested in helping you. I know it might not have been intentional, but your book, your new book, Notes on Being a Man, feels like an SOS. It feels like a pretty please help me to remarkable women that are doing their best to help themselves and everyone around them. It sounds like you are asking for our help. It sounds like you now have recognized the situation that you have currently made as men, not particularly you, but collectively you. And now you are softly asking us to help you. You are pretty pleasing us to help you. But Scott, we are busy. We are busy protecting our reproductive rights. We are busy climbing a ladder that seems to be never ending. We are busy hitting our head on this glass ceiling. We are busy. And though I know that it felt like it was subtle, a subtle way of bringing attention to a problem, but ultimately the subtlety was simply, pretty please, women, can you help me? And I'm just here to tell you that we're really, really busy. We're really busy picking up the pieces. We're really busy over-delivering and getting a fraction of what we deserve. So the notion and what you are feeling and the reactions to your book, I'm sure you wanted us to chip in and help you. I'm sure you wanted us to rally around for the betterment of man. But women have been carrying the weight. And what your book feels like to me is if you are standing outside of a burning house pointing just to tell us that it's on fire. We know it's on fire. What we need to do is grab a hose. What we need to do is grab a bucket. But our hands are full. Our hands are full, Scott. So what I think needs to happen is that men need to get together and figure out empathy. Men need to get together and figure out emotional intelligence. Men need to get together and figure out how you're going to solve the problem without us, to support us. We have created a community, Scott, while we were being ignored, while we were fighting, while we were begging for attention. We created a community that we would love to have you join, but it's not necessary. We would love to have you be a part of it. We'd love to have you cheer us on, but it isn't required. But the world that you have, gentlemen, requires us because there is no creation without us. And so now the subtlety of the book is, yes, there's a fire. But the SOS of the book is that, ladies, can you help us put it out? And I'm just here to tell you that we're busy. But if you'd like to help us, Scott, if in helping us gives you empathy, and helping us gives you emotional intelligence, and helping us, I think you can help you. In paying attention to what has made us successful, collaboration and community, if you follow the leader, Scott, maybe that will help gentlemen get to the better side of things. But as far as the SOS that you have sent out into the world, we're too busy to respond.
And he was talking about the fact that if you look across pretty much every indicator in schools, particularly, you have got young girls who are starting to completely outperform young boys. And this article here is talking about the fact that, you have got men who are either not going to college or dropping out. You've got men in their 30s who are still living with their parents, and they're talking about as well male suicide and just basically how miserable men are. And it's a really odd thing to say. What have men done to deserve this? Because I think you've got to remember that the starting point of all of this is a patriarchal system that was designed specifically to give us the very advantages that are being described as ones we're now unable to achieve. The system was designed specifically to work for us. So, even when you look at suicide, that's nothing to do with women. That is a byproduct of patriarchy and emotional literacy. I've spoken about this before. Anger is the only emotion that men are allowed to feel. Expressing your emotions in a healthy way, even identifying any other emotion other than anger, is unacceptable. So if we're not killing women and children, we're killing other men or killing ourselves. It has nothing to do with women. This is patriarchy. This is the system of oppression that we've been beneficiaries from, which is essentially screwing us over. And it has been for many years, by the way. It's not a new thing. The whole male loneliness epidemic, that's got nothing to do with women. That's patriarchy as well.
We need to talk about the pseudo-intellectual nice guy and how dangerous they really are. And yes, I am talking about Scott Galloway. Here he is yet again running his mouth about things he is not an expert in. Professor Scott Galloway on our current gender divide and how to come together. That's funny, Scott, because you're a professor in marketing. But I digress. I was actually tagged in a post of his, and we need to discuss it. The mating gap. Women are outpacing men in education, income, and emotional maturity. Many women say there aren't any good men left. The truth, there aren't enough viable men for high-achieving women to date. So this showcases already the problem with these pseudo-intellectual men. Because at first glance, this doesn't seem that bad. But what is the correction here? There aren't good men left? He's saying, no, there aren't enough viable men for high-achieving women to date. And the difference is what? I'm guessing our perception of viable? But let's keep going. Soon, for every 2 college-educated women, there will be 1 college-educated man. Men 16 through 24 are 10% behind women in full-time income. Women want men with resources, but men are falling behind on every metric. Facts. What's actually attractive? Scott's formula for what women want. Yes, please, marketing major Scott Galloway, tell us what women want. Signal future resources, not just money now, but discipline and drive. Intellect, the ability to make smart decisions. kindness, how you treat people who can do nothing for you. The fact that you have to define it is quite frightening. Here's Scott's takeaway. You don't have to be rich. You need to show potential, maturity, and emotional generosity. Start with the version of you you'd want to date. But having read all that, would you like to guess what Scott titled this series? I honestly cannot. Why modern dating is failing men. It's not just you. The system is broken, and here's why. What are you talking about? The correct title is Modern Men Are Failing Dating, right? Because every slide you showed how men are not stacking up against women, how they're not bringing the same amount to the table. And this is my problem with this idea, because you have kind of two conflicting things going on, right? You have him saying, you don't have to be rich, you just have to have potential. But in the same breath, you're admitting that women are outpacing them, that they have education, that they have their own income, and they have their own emotional maturity. So why is it that women should settle? Why is it that they should marry men or be with men for their potential? A potential that has not been realized or actualized, when women are living their potential. And how is it that the system is failing men, and yet women who are suppressed by the system are thriving? You can't say the system is failing men when it's quite literally set up for them to succeed. And you can't expect women to settle for the potential, the possibility that men could get better when they're already showcasing their best self. It seems like settling is how you think we can all come together. Yeah, we'll see about that.
Watch this with me. I just want to say I'm the mother of a son, so I care very much about this issue. But also, you write in the book, this is not a zero-sum game. This is not if, it's either women or it's men succeeding, that both tides can and should rise.
Empathy is not a zero-sum game. Civil rights didn't hurt white people. Gay marriage didn't hurt heteronormative marriage. And the call out to young men, to men my age, is the following. We need to get more emotionally involved in a young man's life. The single point of failure for a young man when he comes off the tracks is when he loses a male role model through death, disease, or abandonment. He becomes more likely to be incarcerated than graduate from college the moment he loses a male role model, which is interesting because girls actually have similar outcomes. The net sum of all the research is while boys are physically stronger, they're emotionally and neurologically much weaker. Men my age have to step up. If we want better men, we have to be better men.
Not that there's anything to add on what Scott Galloway says here, and I can't wait to read his book, Notes on Being a Man. But I think if we want better men, we've got to stop raising boys inside the cage of outdated boyhood. It's the one that shames softness and cringes at boys doing anything deemed feminine, like painting nails or liking art or playing with dolls. The one that tells boys they need to lead before ever teaching them how to actually listen. And the one that convinces them that their silence is strength. Yes, men need to step up in roles of caretaking for boys, but the amount of boy moms with internalized misogyny who show up in my comment section is also something that needs to be addressed.
Okay, I keep seeing these videos about Scott Galloway, and I don't know, I guess he's yapping again and whatever. And the problem with Scott Galloway is that he seems to prescribe women as the solution to the male loneliness, and also like men making money. They're like, if you make money, if you have a good job, then you get a wife, and then we fix the problem. So I wrote this as a comment under another creator's video, but like I feel this is how I feel about it. I think logically it's bad to stake your worth on things outside of your control, i.e. a wife, money, career. I wish someone would speak to men about finding inner value instead of conflating life choices with accomplishments. Being a husband, wife, having a family isn't an accomplishment. It's a life choice. That's great if you want it, but centering it as the only valid, worthy life choice causes them to feel rejection or failure, especially in this capitalistic, patriarchal society. You're not a failure if you're a single man with low income. But Scott Galloway makes them think there's a patriarchal, capitalistic way to self-fulfillment. There's not. And this bothers me because we seem to just be forgetting everybody's dads. Like everybody's dads from the 80s and 90s, not everybody's dads, but a lot of our dads were doing fine economically. They had the house, they had the wife, they had kids. They weren't good husbands, they weren't good fathers. So, like, it's not the economy that I understand that the economy could be making it worse and it could be exacerbating things, but I don't think that's the fix, guys. I think there has to do, like, you have to do some internal work to be like, why are we like this? Like, the fact that he even said in one of his things, he's like, a single woman, like, with a cat is not a problem to society, but a single man is, like, is into corn and conspiracy theories and, like, is violent or whatever. I'm like, but why is that? You have to do some internal work to undo that. It's a bad thing to just be like, well, if we just throw enough money at it. Like, I'm not saying, like, economically we shouldn't be having, like, an uprising right now. I'm not saying that. Like, yes, there should be things, but I don't think that will fix it because it hasn't in the past. I just think there needs to be some internal, he's coming at it from a very, like, man point of view of being like, well, if we just, like, you know, tough love them a little bit or make them get more money and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you can't patriarchy your way out of patriarchy. It seems just dumb and backwards. Like, it seems so obvious to me, but I'm like, they have to do the internal work. You have to, like, somehow find value within yourself, not in these things that are outside of your control or whatever. I'm not saying that we shouldn't change these things, like, you know, the, you know, economy and class consciousness and all the other stuff, but I was like, that won't, like, you could be wealthy and it won't make you happy.
Open up this app the last few days. There is a video of Scott Galloway at the top of my feed, and I really wish we could wrap this little tour of his up very quickly because I am so sick of him. And listen, I used to really appreciate his work, but he lost me after the election last year when he was on another little press tour where he was talking about what he thought was wrong and why the Democrats lost. And this narrative that he's always running with is that, like, we need to coddle white men. And that's basically the same narrative he's running with again about, like, how do we get men back on track? He's almost like the male Mel Robbins, but, like, there's no intersectionality in any of his work. And I'm tired of him, like, scapegoating women. Aren't you?
Can you believe that this is the state of men today? How are you not embarrassed? Telling women to lower our standards and the standards are just basic life skills? I'm sorry, but this is undateable. You're undateable. You're fully advertising that if a woman doesn't want to live in squalor, that she's gonna have to do everything around the house herself, even though you probably don't make enough money for her not to work. This is just so unattractive. No woman wants to be your mommy. I'm sick of hearing about incels and male loneliness when this is what we're dealing with. It's also so funny when men threaten us with being single. Like, every woman would rather be single than clean up after you for the rest of her life. All of the stats show that women do really well when they're single. They're happy, they have friends, they have hobbies. Meanwhile, men do really poorly when they're single. It's actually men who need women. You should be improving yourself to attract women, and I guess you're out of luck.
Scott Galloway, he talks a lot about the crisis of young men today, how young men are not doing very well socially, romantically, economically, and he tries to pitch solutions to those problems. This week, I think he's promoting a book, so he's going on a lot of TV shows and talking about his ideas, and I find that Scott gets a real mixed reaction from people. Scott is a liberal person, so obviously the right wing hates him, but feminists also bristle at Scott for some of his gender analysis. But as a feminist myself, I kind of want to make the case for why I think Scott Galloway is a good ally for us. One example from this week is that Scott Galloway went on TV and he advocated for free universal childcare, and he talked about how universal childcare could benefit men. And I see why women might bristle at this argument because it should be enough that universal childcare benefits women. However, if we actually want to see these policies enacted, we have to get a lot of people on board, and that includes men. Scott Galloway's intended audience is men. He's trying to talk to men. He's trying to get men to self-improve. I think it's okay for men to make the case to other men for why these policies that benefit women will also help them. In fact, I think it's necessary to get enough people on board to actually get these policies in place. In the past, I've talked about how the left has lost the art of persuasion, and furthermore, we've decided that persuasion shouldn't be necessary for political change, but that is not the reality, and we actually do need to persuade people to our way of thinking if we want change. So a liberal man communicating to other men about why universal childcare benefits them too, I think that's good. And if that rhetoric helps these policies get passed, then making that argument will have tangibly helped women, and that's allyship. If you're advocating for pro-woman policies, I actually don't care how you have to message it to men to get them to vote for it. Do you know what I mean? I've also sometimes seen the criticism that Scott Galloway blames women for men's problems, but I don't think that's true either. What I've heard is Scott Galloway stating very plainly that men benefit more from romantic relationships than women do. He says all the time that single women are much better off than single men, and most of his advice is geared towards men on how they can be worth dating. I think this is very positive in the face of so much red pill messaging that tells men that women are the only ones who benefit from relationships and that women are gold diggers. I think it's good that Scott Galloway is using data to tell men that they are the true beneficiaries of romantic romantic relationships, and that if they want a wife or a girlfriend, they need to self-improve because women don't need you. Scott doesn't always say the exact right thing. I don't always agree with his angle, but on the whole, I think his messaging to men is very positive, and I think we should let him cook.
Widows are happier after their husband dies. True. This is
every time I see another video, Scott, it just gets worse. You start off this video talking about Lisa, who is happy with her cats. She doesn't have a man. And now it's widows who are happy when their husbands kick the bucket. And then you turn around to say in the same video that men who are married live 5 to 7 years longer, that men who do not get married by the time they're 30 have a higher risk of substance abuse problems. Why would we want to marry you? We're happy when you're dead. Where is your answer to that? You keep saying your own 3 Ps. Everyone knows I have my 3 Ps. Scott's are provide, protect, and procreate. So your answer is to bring a couple of bucks into the home, have a bat by your bedside, and fuck a lot. We already been there, done that, and we're happy when you die. What are you offering? What are you offering to young women? What are young men offering to young women to gain the benefits that marriage gives to men and sucks out of women? Your only answer is marry us or we're gonna die. Marry us or we're gonna take drugs. Oh, to be a rich white man. Just to be a rich white man. Because clearly you didn't have to run this message by one single person. What are young men offering young women that young women actually want?
Okay, you've all seen this video I'm about to show you by now, but I have a counterpoint to it. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. You're going to want to watch.
You can't tell women to lower their expectations, but this is the reality. When you ask a man if you could have a woman who had 80% of everything you wanted, 75% say, yeah, I'm on board.
So to clarify, women are swiping and not paying attention or accepting any men, and of course are ghosting men because, you know, women, we're the problem. And he can expect women to lower their expectations, of course, right? Okay, here's my counterpoint.
So just to give you a little bit of a realistic perspective on dating, I'm 36 years old. I'd say I'm fairly attractive. I go to the gym every single day, and I have no kids. Just to let you know, women, you do not offer all of that together ever.
I mean, ladies, why aren't we swooning at this catch? I mean, goodness gracious, he goes to the gym 5 days a week and he's 36 and single. I wonder why. Now, I'm happily married, been married for years now. But if this is what the dating pool looks like for women today, I can understand why women today are choosing to be single and are choosing not to go out on dates at all. Because this lovely gem of a man in his comments constantly told women to shut their legs and that they're ran through. I'll tag him if you want to go look at his video because the comments are divine. All my love.
Who's this Scott Galloway guy? I keep seeing all over my feeds just talking about the fucking male loneliness epidemic. As if women aren't lonely too. They're just not out here committing murders and doing like the most atrocious things. Shit, when women are lonely, they just get a new hobby, like fucking knitting or baking sourdough or having a million cats, which is fucking awesome, by the way. Or just like having peace because there's no one around fucking bothering them. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't have sympathy for these men who are lonely in a system that was created by them, by y'all. Like, y'all created the system. I think men just need to step up to the plate and learn how to grow and evolve into better people.
They need relationships. They need it more than women. There's this cartoon of a woman in her 30s who didn't find romantic love and is now living with cats. The reality is she's fine. When women don't have a relationship, they pour that energy into their friends and their work. When a man doesn't have a relationship, he pours it into conspiracy theory, porn, and misogyny. Men need relationships much more than women. So this is how we get men more economically viable.
I'm listening.
Better tax policies, more vocational programming, and also, I think the public policy that would benefit men the most is universal child care.
Hate to break it to you, Scott, but in order to benefit from free universal child care, you need to be worthy of breeding with in the first place. And just because a man has a pulse and can take a breath does not make him worthy. We have an entire generation of young men that women do not want to date, that women do not want to mate with. That is the crux of the issue that you refuse to address. Why is that? Because you're fucking responsible. Because your generation and some Gen X guys are all responsible for the state of young men today. I've talked about it multiple times, but I'm going to bring it up again. Number one, for the past 15 years, young men have had access to all of the world's adult content in their pockets. From the age 8, 9, 10 years old. These are the 20 to 25-year-olds that are walking amongst us now, unable to date because they are not worthy. And women know this, right? And they've spent their entire youth distracted by free, ubiquitous, endless adult fucking content. Scott, when you were a child in the 60s, 70s, whenever, the best you got was the Sears catalog. The best you got was maybe a Playboy, right? Hiding under your mattress. These boys have been seeing hardcore adult content from the time they got their first phone. All day, every day, twice on Sunday. How about that? What would that have done to your mojo? Be honest. And that's not just that. What else did we do during this time frame? Oh, we made a certain plant legal. Certain plant that's not known for motivation, is it? And then what else did we do? We made gambling legal. Because why the fuck not? And you are all standing around with your dicks in your hands like, what happened? Why don't the boys want to go to college? What the fuck you think? All of these things were called vices once upon a time. What's a vice? Something that you get addicted to. So now your generation has created an entire generation of young, undateable men who have a series of micro addictions. And instead of addressing that, instead of admitting that you made a mistake in the bastion of almighty prophets, you're like, no, get universal child care? The fuck? Women and girls are running laps around young men because we don't have those proclivities. We are not the type, to just get sucked in by our most base wants and desires. But men are. You've said it yourself. I've heard you. You've said it, Scott. You have said what? Young men need guardrails. You want women to be those guardrails when it used to be society. Society used to provide guardrails for young men. Society used to say, you cannot go into that theater until you're 21. This plant is totally illegal. You can't have it. You get arrested if you do. But instead we're like, no, go ahead, boys. And this is what they've done. And I haven't even mentioned video games. Why are you shocked? Why? I'm not. I don't think any woman alive is shocked. But you know what? We're too busy to think about it too much. Because we don't fucking care. Because our daughters are out there getting degrees. Our daughters are going to graduate school. Our daughters are doctors and lawyers and engineers. And your sons are fapping it into socks.
I've seen that article or the interviews with Scott Galloway talking about like the new asexual man and like what the male loneliness epidemic has become. And number one, I have to say, you're using the wrong term. Please stop using the word asexual. That is its own thing. What these men are, they're not involuntarily celibate. They're voluntarily disregarding everything that makes them a good partner because that's what they believe makes them a good man. That is what they believe makes them masculine. Because like he says in his articles and his interviews, like these top 10 companies have basically influenced younger guys, men in general, to basically react to hate and rage and in like racism and sexism and homophobia and all of the things. And it is turning them into people who no one wants to be around. They don't put effort into themselves. They don't put effort into their hygiene. They don't care anymore because why the fuck would they put themselves out there in public when they don't have to? When they could just go on Discord and be hateful to one another. They can get on a game and be horrible to each other and enjoy it because that's what they think that men do. And why the fuck would they put any effort into wanting to be with a human when they could just be with an AI cat girl? Do you know what I mean? So like, let's not call them asexual. They're not asexual. They are voluntarily, and let's not even say that they're being incels because they're not. You are choosing this. You are choosing to be lonely and you are choosing to make yourself not the type of person that anyone would want to be with. So, yeah.
I want to take a second and promote this comment here. That's the problem. Why is he, Scott Galloway, telling men to better themselves in the hopes of getting a woman? Men aren't entitled to women, so they should better themselves because it's good for them. And I think that gets to the core of the Scott Galloway issue. He dangles women as a prize for men. If men can just figure their shit out, they will get what they are entitled to. And the reason they're not getting what they are entitled to is because they haven't figured their shit out. He isn't deconstructing the entitlement at all. At all. He's just going along with it as a way to try to motivate men. Like, yes, you will get a woman. Yes, you will become a patriarch. Yes, you get to build your own mini little kingdom if you get your shit figured out, and I want to help you try to get your shit figured out, but he continues to dangle women as a prize to be won. It is objectifying. It is objectifying. And until Scott Galloway figures out that element, to stop treating women like a prize, like men are entitled to have a woman in their life. You have to deconstruct entitlement if you're going to deconstruct patriarchal masculinity. And Scott Galloway isn't even close to being there yet. And I want to be a little bit vulnerable here because I've been called out for this too. I've made videos in the past when I was considering trying to do coaching for men. And the coaching was framed around marketing it to men who were trying to date and trying to reach to men who were trying to date women as a way to try to deconstruct patriarchal masculinity. And I got called out rightfully for dangling women as a prize to be won for men. And I had, the best intentions. That's great, but this is something that comes with patriarchal masculine programming, and it showed up for me as well. In fact, most of the stuff that I talk about on my channel has shown up in me at one point in my life. I am not like some outlier where like I never have experienced these things. No, I was indoctrinated and trained in patriarchal masculinity for most of my life before I left manhood, and I'm actively trying to deconstruct that now. But that is kind of my first language, is patriarchal masculine programming. that and evangelical Christianity. Those are like my two primary languages that I was indoctrinated in growing up. So this is something I don't want to pretend like I'm somehow above all this.